Welcome to Digital Performer. This is lesson 2, movie A. I'm not sure how many movies there are going to be in this part of this one, but what we're going to do, our goal this time is to take a file that is in Finale and get it into Digital Performer, and then from there find a way to record it. So I'm just clearing up my screen here so we have some decent workspace. And what we're going to do, you'll find on Canvas in the file section of this class a file that is called, let me see if I can find it for you. It's going to be called Axel F Music. And this is a Finale file. And as I open it up, it's going to open up Finale, which is great because that's what we want to do. Our goal is to get out of Finale into Digital Performer. And a few of the classes we talked about this initially, but I'm going to review it and then we'll take you through the whole process. Our ultimate goal is to make an MP3 file that we can play in iTunes or in any whatever player that you have that plays MP3 files. So we open up Finale, open up this Axel F. And I don't know if you remember working on this from the beginning of class, but this is just a basic Finale file. You know, if I scan it to play, it's really quite boring. Well, actually, it's a fun piece, but we're going to make it a little more exciting. Okay, so that's our Finale file. Now what we want to do, we talked about in MIDI, there are 16 MIDI channels. And we have to think, well, what channels is this playing? And the way to find out this is you go to Score Manager in Finale, Command K, and here we can look at all the staffs that we have working. And in this particular Finale file, it says the piano staff, the group name, which has no group name, and then it goes through and it says it's all playing. If you go over to the right, channel 1, and there are 16 MIDI channels. Well, we want to change the right and left hand. In order to do that, we have to break this up, and so we open there's a down arrow right here in the name, right to the left of group name. I couldn't see it in my screen because it's gray upon gray. I think at the university, the screen this highlight is blue, and so you can actually see that drop down arrow. See, I can see it when I click it. It's right to the left of the group name. And then I get piano right hand and piano left hand. And there's another drop down button which gives me even more detail. We don't need all that detail right now. So now we have the right hand and left hand separated. It says piano right hand. And we come across to the right and we see that at the very right over here it says this is playing channel 1. Well, remember there are 16 MIDI channels. Right hand playing channel 1 is a good choice. We go to the left hand and it's playing channel 1 also. And we need to separate it out so we have individual control when we load it into another program. So we're going to click on that 1, highlight it, type in the number 2, and look at that, channel 1 and channel 2. So we are in good shape. We can now close the Score Manager window. We've now changed it so this is playing on channel 1, left hand is playing on channel 2. That's really all we need to do. So we come up here now and we say Save As. We're not going to save it, we're going to save as. And we have two choices that will pop up. Save as Axel F, and down here it says Format. Finale notation file is what we've been saving things at, but we want to save it as a file that can be opened up in any music program, and that's a standard MIDI file. It's kind of like a text program in word processing documents. So we choose it as a standard MIDI file. Notice that the suffix on this changes from .mus, which is a Finale file, to .mid, which is a standard MIDI file. And I'm going to put Command D so it goes to the desktop so it's easy to find. Right now it's going to be buried in the Finale files. I hit Command D and see this changes to desktop. It will be much easier to find. And I push Save, and it asks me this question: do I want to export this MIDI file as Format 1, which is all instruments saved to separate tracks? And the answer will be yes. Format 0, which we seldom use, is all instruments saved to a single track, which would recombine them, which is just what we tried to do, is to separate them out. So don't use Format 0. And a tempo map. And in advanced applications, tempo map becomes useful, but not today. So we say OK, and you'll notice on your desktop, you can't see mine because it's off the recording screen, but it says axlef.mid. Once I've done that, see, I'm going to drag this over so you can see it. I'm pulling it over. Oh, see it? I'm going to hold on to it because mine snaps over there. So that's what it looks like, axlef.mid. All right, so once I've done that, I can actually quit Finale. So I come up here to Finale, I say quit. I could save the changes. I can throw the changes away. It really doesn't matter. I'm not going to save them in this particular case. And now we're going to go, and I'm going to go to the bottom of my screen, and I'm going to open Digital Performer. You can't see my icons, but there's the top of it. It's a circle with this DP in it, and I open it up. I double click on it to open it. I get the splash screen for DP7. It comes up. It loads all the plugins and things like that. And when it gets to the point that it asks me, what do I want to do? Open. Well, I'm going to cancel this. And I'm going to come up to File. And instead of saying New, I'm going to say Open. And from Open File, I'm going to go Command D to put me to the desktop, and I see right here my axlef.mid file. And I'm going to say yes, click on that one. That's what I want to open. And it's going to ask me some questions. Do you want to remap your devices? You're just going to come up with something similar. It's going to say different things in it, but just say OK. And so you get to your screen here, and it has 2 tracks because we told it to create 2 tracks. Now, before we even start working, we want to do our housekeeping for the program. I know that the Digital Performer program at the University Labs defaults to having consolidated windows open. And I, in the last movie, if you watched it, I showed you how to turn off consolidated windows. If you've already done that in class and you want to know how to do that now, I'm going to talk you through the steps. You want to go up to, you want to close this window here, whatever, you may have the one with all the tabs open. Whatever window you have open, you want to close them so you're left with just your control screen. You're going to come up to Digital Performer in the upper left-hand corner, go down to Preferences, and you're going to choose Consolidated Windows, and you're going to turn them off. Yours were probably on. Mine are off because I don't like them on. I think it's easier to work with them off at this point. So Consolidated Windows, you want to have the button turned off, and then done. So now you're left with this screen here. Now we're going to go up to Project, and we can choose Windows one by one, which is a better way of working. And we're going to go to Tracks, which is Shift-T for a shortcut. But we're going to open this up. And so here's what we have. No consolidated windows now, it's just the Tracks window. And we talked about in the last Digital Performer exercise this kind of Excel spreadsheet thing that goes on. We talked about the shortcuts. And so right now, just hit the shortcuts, hit 0, and then 1 to rewind. And see, that pulls us back to we can actually see that there's data over here in this sequence. This is called a sequence. We have a window pane here, which is draggable. This is our track layout, and this is the information side. So we want to be able to see both sides equally. We come down here under track name, and in the last lesson we learned how to change the names of these. So let's change the name of yours. On the top one you have 1. Let's change it to piano right hand. And then I can just down arrow and go to the next one. Instead of having to option click it, I can say piano left hand. So now I have the right hand and the left hand, but these are there's not assigned to play anything yet. What we have to learn is how to assign them to an instrument. There's nothing assigned. So let's load our Garaton Aria player in here so that we can use those instruments. I'm going to click on the name conductor because I know that whatever I highlight, if I add an instrument, it will come in underneath whatever I highlight. If I don't highlight anything, it'll end up on the bottom. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to come up here to Project. I'm going to go to Add Track, and I'm going to come over here to the right, and I'm going to say Add an Instrument Track. And these are all the instruments that are available to be as sound modules. I have more here than you have up in the lab up there, but we have some that are in common. So let's look what we have in common. We have all the Motu instruments, which are kind of fun, and we'll get to in a minute. But the Garriton down here is where we find our aria player. This is the one we're familiar with in Finale. We come over to the right and we choose the stereo version of it. And so we load this in, and then here we get our aria player. And as we learned in our last lesson, there are 16 spots to put sounds. And so we're going to put in spot 1, we click where it says empty. This is going to be our right hand sound. We can choose anything we want. We're going to go down to General MIDI, and let's do a synth brass in spot 1. And see, it changes to synth brass. And you can click on these keys if you want to. And then in spot 2, the left hand, we're going to go for bass sounds. We're going to go to Finale Default Bank, come down to GM, which stands for General MIDI, and come down to where it says synth bass. So this is our left hand. Oh, I got to click on it to make it active. So I double clicked on it here. See, I have to double click, so there's a little white button here. Now your aria player is dark oranges and blacks as opposed to silvers. It's the same player. Now, we also, part of this, what I would like for you to do is you're going to add drums to this. And as we did in the last assignment, we made 2 spots for drums. So in spot 3, let's put under the jazz, our Fusion drum kit, which is probably the best drum kit in this aria player. And in spot 4, we're going to put the same Fusion drum kit. So we have 2 tracks for it. And so we go down to jazz, go to Fusion drum kit. So now we have the synth brass in spot 1 for our right hand, synth bass in spot 2 for our left hand, and spot 3 a drum kit, spot 4 a drum kit. Once we've loaded our sounds into this module and remember where they are, we either pull it off to the side or actually close it. And I think right now it's pretty easy to remember what we've loaded in. So I have here my piano right hand under track name piano left hand. So I go to the column, the left and right column, and I see where it says piano right hand. I click on it just so it kind of gives me a orientation spot, and I come backwards to the left under output, and right now it's kind of italicized, which means it's not assigned. This is not actually working. But now I can click on here because I've loaded an aria player right here. I can click where it says, mine says EPS, yours probably says, I can't remember what it says, but it's not correct. But you can click on it and it opens up all the possibilities. And so I can come up here and find my aria player 1, spot 1. Now that will play that piano right hand. I can come down to this left hand, go to the left, go to where it says, whatever yours may say. I'm going to click on it and have it say aria player 1, spot 2. So now I have the right hand playing that synth brass and the left hand playing the synth bass. And I can push play and just see what's happening. It's very slow and obnoxious. I remember from my last lesson, I have a tempo marking here. I can just click on this and I can change it to 220. And I'm going to hit 0, 1, enter. Okay, that's kind of fun. And now there is something going on here. It sounds like some of the notes are not being cut off. So we're going to do a global edit here. And remember, we talked about in the last lesson 3 ways to select notes to change them. We could either take the mouse and drag a box around them all. We can go Command A, which highlights everything, or I can come up to the timeline, not at the top number, the bottom number, and drag the mouse over that so that it highlights them. What I want going to do is I'm going to actually change the duration of these. What's happening is the beginning and the end of the note on some spots are right in the exact same spot, so it's cutting notes out. So I'm going to shorten them all by 5%. And the way I do that is I'm going to come up here to region, and I have all these things I can do to the notes, but I'm going to change duration. Oh, there it was right here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, about 9 down. Change duration. And I'm going to say extend releases, no. Set, no. I'm going to scale. I chose scale of my options, and I'm going to change them to 95%, which means they're not going to be quite full length. That way, it'll move my ends and my beginnings so they're not right on top of each other. And I'm going to apply it, and now I'm going to see what happens by pushing play. I like that. All right, so that's working really well. Now, the next part of this is that we would like to add a drum. But I'm going to stop, save this movie, and open up a part 2 because it's getting a little long.